Hi everybody. When I made the video, I forgot to put this last part in there, and we need this for the homework. So this is actually going with the top part of page 31, just two examples that went on to page 31. So we are going to be solving for x, and x here is a matrix. So that's what we're looking for, is an answer that is a matrix here. One thing to remember, matrix multiplication is not commutative and order does matter. So write that down in the margin, and we're going to use that here in just a second. What we need to do, based upon what we just learned on the previous page, is what we need to do is we need to multiply this times the inverse of c. And if we multiply by the inverse of c on the left-hand side of the equation, then we also have to multiply by the inverse of c on the right-hand side of the equation. And so what we're going to have is we're going to have the inverse of c times x is equal to inverse of c times d. This inverse and the c cancel each other out, which is the whole purpose we're doing this. So then what we're going to have is x is the inverse of c times d. So what we need to do is go to our calculator and find out, okay, well that's great, but what's the inverse of c? So let's do that. I'm calling this c and d just because that's what I put them into my calculator as. So let's go to our calculator and let's put in matrix c and then find the inverse of c. So I go to my calculator and I'm going to store this matrix 2, 3, 5, 0 into the matrix C position. So now I'm going to quit out of here and I'm going to go back to the main screen, and now I'm going to go back into matrices and say that I want matrix C. So I go to names, C, enter, and I put the -1 power and I get this. And I actually want to write this down, and because I want to write it down, I want to change it over to a fraction. So I'm going to go to Math, Fraction, and here it is. I'm going to write this down on my paper. Okay, so I'm going to write that down, 0 1/5, 1/3, -2 15ths. That was what my calculator just told me was the inverse of c. So inverse of c times c drops off. It gives me x equals inverse of c times d. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to multiply that times d. And on my calculator, I just have to hit times d. I'll show you. So here I have it on my calculator. I'm just going to hit times and then second matrix, names, d, enter. And so now I have this matrix being multiplied by matrix d, and I hit enter, and I get the answer 0, 3, 1, 2. And so that is what matrix X would be. And I can double check that. I can take this matrix and multiply it times C, and I should come up with 3, 12, 0, 15. Okay, let's do the other example so you can see it. This time I'm going to plug this in for E, and then I'm going to take E to the negative first times the left-hand side of the equation, and e to the negative first times the right-hand side of the equation. And so on the left-hand side, those e and negative inverse of e are going to cancel each other out. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to have the negative first, or the inverse of e, times what I have here is the matrix of F. So I need to go to my calculator, find the inverse of e. So I'm going to go into my calculator. I'm going to create matrix E being 3, 4, 5, 1. I'm going to quit out of here, and I'm going to take matrix E, so second matrix, names E, enter. I'm going to take the inverse of that, enter. And again, I just like to write it down. So I'm going to change this into a fraction and write it down. So I'm going to go to Math, Fraction, and I'm going to write this down. So now I'm going to take that matrix and multiply it times matrix F, which if you haven't already done so, you need to put that into matrix F. I actually did that already, but you might take a minute to do that. And then take this and just hit times matrix F. Okay, so I'm here. I'm going to hit times second matrix, and I'm looking for F. Where's my matrix? There we go. Choose F, hit enter, and this is my answer, 2, 3, -1, 4. This time I want to check it with you. So again, here's my answer. This is my x. This is the answer. If I take that answer and multiply it by matrix E, I should get matrix F, which is this 2, 25, 9, 19. So I'm going to take this on my calculator, hit times matrix E. You have to be kind of careful because if you hit the wrong button like I did last time, you'll erase this matrix and you can't just copy this. So I'm going to hit times second matrix E, and it should give me that one that has a 25 and 19 in it. And I just realized I went the wrong way. That's why it didn't work. So I did it and I got the wrong answer, but that's because I went the wrong way. Remember, matrix multiplication is not commutative. So I'm not going to do it in this video. I would have to save this as like matrix G and then work it through from there, which I don't think I'm going to do. You're just going to have to take my word for it, that this is the answer for X on question number 4 on the notes. This should help you with those middle problems in the assignment from the book assignment.